Consider the desperate need of a caring friendship, the major accomplishment of a kind word, and the pure value of a simple smile, and you can save a life. Today, my goal is to present to you the reality of suicide, the signals of suicide, and our responsibility to prevent suicide. In about 5 minutes after the conclusion of this speech, another human being in the United States will commit suicide. But you have the power to alter someone's fate. As many of you may or may not know, suicide is a common reality. According to crisisclinic.org and christianliferesources.com, every 18 minutes, someone commits suicide, as you can see in this PowerPoint. That is about 4 suicides in 1 hour, and about 96 suicides every single day. Suicide is also the 3rd leading cause of death among people who are aged 18 through 29 years old. I believe that many of the causes of suicide, part of it is because of unawareness of the signals. Suicidal signals include constant talk about death, sudden transitions from being happy to sad, loss of interest in things that one used to be interested in, and as well as other suicidal signals, other signals that can be questionable. 8 out of every 10 people who commit suicide provide warning signs in advance. That means that 8 out of every 10 suicides, people provided warnings and nobody noticed. Warnings that were overlooked, signals that weren't considered. Another thing that's overlooked, aside from signals of suicide, is the causes of suicide. Causes of suicide include physical, sexual, emotional, and verbal abuse. They also include bullying and the feeling of being unaccepted by family, friends, or society. Preventing suicide is our responsibility. If we can make the choice to step out of our own comfort zone and reach into the lives of someone else who may be hurting, we have the ability to save someone's life. William Barclay said, "A man may well be condemned, not for doing something, but for doing nothing." You, as a fellow human being, have the responsibility to avoid the horrible guilt of not doing anything to have stopped a suicide. I recently heard a story of a woman who was on the verge of committing suicide. However, that same day, her son-in-law had a thought that occurred to him. He decided to call his mother-in-law and tell her about how much he appreciated her and how much he thanked her for raising his wife to be a very wonderful woman. Because of that son-in-law's call, the woman confessed that she was on the verge of committing suicide. It was totally unexpected, but his kind words saved her life because she was feeling unappreciated, unaccepted, and unneeded. Just as this man saved his mother-in-law's life, you too can do the same. As I mentioned before, you can save someone's life by reaching out to someone who is often alone or constantly seems unhappy or who may be revealing some of the previously mentioned signals of suicide. Another tool you need to know is to be ready to call the hotline or be ready to give out the number to the hotline, National Suicide Hotline, which is 1-800-SUICIDE. As you can see, it's very easy. 1-800-SUICIDE. Through this hotline, people who are having thoughts on suicide can get counseling and their lives can be saved. Now that you are familiar with the reality of suicide, the signals of suicide, and your responsibility to prevent suicide, you have no excuse to remain nonchalant on this issue. Somewhere, there is a person who is uttering cries that seem to be unheard. There is a person who is shedding tears that appear to be invisible and carrying a weight that seems to be unnoticed. If we could take the time to stop and listen, we can hear that those cries aren't so silent after all. If we could take the time to stop and look, we'll see those invisible tears that no one else saw. And if we can take the time to stop and understand, we'll notice the burden being carried all along. I encourage you, go and save a life. Thank you.